day marked Jack's return from abroad. Rose, her best friend, who also happened to be Jack's niece, and Jack headed to the airport to pick him up. Upon seeing Jack, the niece cleverly left the two alone, asking him to drop Rose off at her school before disappearing. Rose felt a hint of secret delight. On the way, she sketched Jack's silhouette in her notebook, but a moment of distraction caused her to sprain her ankle. Jack, quick on his feet, scooped her up in a bridal carry. The intimacy of the gesture made Rose's heart race. Back at school, Rose realized that her USB drive, which contained sketches of a nude Jack, had accidentally been left in his car. With no choice, she braced herself and headed to Jack's house that night. At the door, she was met by Jack fresh out of the shower. Before she could speak, Jack casually invited her to stay the night, explaining that the dorm curfew had passed and her only other option was a hotel. Embarrassed but with no other choice, Rose agreed. Jack teasingly reminded her not to visit a man's house so late at night in the future. To ease the awkwardness, Rose chatted with her best friend over the phone. Jack overheard and asked if she was talking to her boyfriend, which Rose quickly denied. Just then, the doorbell rang. Jack's assistant had returned her USB drive. Mortified, Rose fled to the guest room. The next morning, Rose hurriedly grabbed a glass of cold milk to drink before leaving, only to have Jack appear silently behind her. Startled, she nearly spilled the milk, but Jack caught it in time and softly reminded her not to drink cold milk in the morning. He then invited her to a family meal at his father's house. At the meal, Jack's father urged him to settle down and marry. Jack revealed he already had someone he liked. Hearing this, Rose was overcome with a wave of disappointment. She excused herself from the table, her mind drifting to 7 years ago. At that time, she and her best friend had been involved in a fight at school. Jack had come to take his niece home, leaving Rose to wait alone in the dark for her parents, who never came. Jack eventually took her home. From that moment on, every male protagonist in her drawings had resembled Jack. The thought that the person she secretly admired might like someone else filled her heart with bitterness. A call from her best friend interrupted her thoughts. They arranged to meet for a meal, and Jack came to pick them up. However, upon arrival, Rose found that Jack was alone. She tried to maintain a distance, which Jack quickly noticed, asking if their age gap was the reason for her coldness. Rose shyly looked away. At the restaurant, her best friend excitedly shared a new comic book whose male lead strongly resembled Jack. Panicked, Rose tried to silence her, as she was the author of the comic. This raised Jack's suspicions. Later, her best friend dragged her to a party to help her meet new people. Rose reluctantly agreed, preferring it over spending time alone with Jack. Jack, noticing her compliance, placed a peeled shrimp on her plate and firmly instructed them to be home by 11 p.m. At the party, Rose drank to drown her sorrows, eventually getting drunk. A group of boys offered to escort her back, but a man suddenly intervened and pushed them away. In her intoxicated state, Rose kissed the man on the lips. It was Jack. Shocked, Jack stumbled on the steps. After ensuring she was safely in bed, Jack prepared to leave but was stopped when Rose grabbed his hand, mumbling for him not to treat her like a child. The next morning, a mortified Rose resolved to avoid Jack. However, she was cornered by him at the staircase, where he handed her a birthday gift for her 22nd birthday. Jack had never forgotten her birthday in all the years they'd known each other. But the gentler Jack became, the harder it was for Rose to let go of their feelings. Soon after, Jack called to inform her that his USB drive had accidentally been placed in her gift box. She reluctantly delivered it to his office and discovered that his company was hiring assistants. Seizing the chance, Rose secretly applied for the job. The next day, Jack found his new secretary to be none other than Rose. Smiling, he asked her to help tie his tie. As she expertly did so, Jack became jealous, accusing her of having practiced on someone else. In retaliation, he yanked off her ribbon as punishment. Not long after, Rose, hungry and slouched over her desk, was caught drooling by Jack, who handed her a tissue and took her to his office for lunch. He gave her 2 boxes of candy, instructing her to snack when hungry, but also warned her against wearing low-cut tops. Embarrassed, Rose mumbled that he wasn't her boyfriend before leaving. One day, Rose accidentally spilled tea on a colleague named David, who demanded compensation with ill intentions. Jack stepped in to resolve the situation and, in the process, accidentally brushed against her lips. Both froze in awkwardness. Rose, flustered, nearly tripped but ended up falling against Jack's chest, leaving him momentarily stunned. That night, Jack stared at a photo of Rose on his phone, considering the idea of becoming her boyfriend. David began pursuing Rose, but she subtly rejected him by gifting him a drawing that hinted at his flirtatious nature. When Jack requested a drawing of himself, Rose, hiding her true feelings, deliberately made it comical. To her surprise, Jack made it his profile picture, leaving Rose delighted. One evening, David followed Rose to her hotel. Jack, seething with jealousy, misinterpreted her intentions when he saw her in a revealing nightgown. Angrily, he demanded she take it off and draped his jacket over her, declaring she wasn't allowed to go anywhere that night. Believing Jack had no romantic interest in her, Rose became disheartened until he assigned her a major project. Nervous, she asked what would happen if she failed. Jack smirked, saying, "Then you'll have to compensate me with yourself." While searching for research materials in the library, Jack stumbled upon Rose's secret comic. Flustered, she tried to snatch it back, but Jack teasingly held it out of reach. In the commotion, she almost collided with a bookshelf, and Jack quickly reached out to cushion her head with his hand, leaving them in a suggestively intimate position that made both feel awkward. Meanwhile, Amy, eyeing Rose's project, attempted to seduce Jack. Rose accidentally witnessed this and, heartbroken, drowned her sorrows with her best friend. During their conversation, she learned from her friend that Amy was Jack's matchmaking candidate. Devastated, she cried, and David happened to be present, further complicating matters when Jack misunderstood Rose's tears to be for David. The misunderstanding between them only deepened. Things took a turn when Jack found Rose's comics and realized her true feelings for him. He also learned from his niece that she had rented a nightclub VIP room and invited 10 male models to cheer Rose up. Furious, Jack stormed in and cleared out the entire club. When Rose arrived, she found only Jack drinking alone in the private booth. He remarked mockingly, "Since you love to play so much, why don't you start by keeping me company?" With that, he pinned her against the table and kissed her passionately, exposing the secrets of her comic. He then brazenly offered to provide more inspiration for her stories if needed. Enraged, Rose bit his neck and demanded to know the truth about him and Amy. Jack quickly clarified, but Rose called him an old man, leaving Jack visibly hurt. Jack later drove Rose home and saw her packing her bags, preparing to return to her parents' city. He spent the entire night waiting outside her door until she promised not to leave, and he even took the opportunity to convince her to move into his house. One day, while retrieving toothpaste from Rose's room, Jack used it as an excuse to steal a kiss under the pretense of testing the taste. Before Rose could react, her phone rang. It was her mother asking when she'd be visiting home. Jack took advantage of the moment to kiss her again, leaving Rose on the verge of screaming. Later, Jack asked Rose to grab something from his car trunk. When she opened it, she was greeted by a trunk full of fresh flowers. Jack seized the moment to confess his love. Overwhelmed, Rose decided to immortalize the scene in her comic. However, Jack took her hand, pointed to one of his sketches, and teasingly remarked that she had drawn a mole in the wrong spot. Guiding her hand lower to his abdomen, he whispered where the mole really was, leaving Rose trembling with embarrassment. Jack, emboldened, added with a smirk, "You also made my size too small in your drawings." Rose stammered, admitting she'd never seen him unclothed. Jack leaned in, kissed her deeply, and placed her on the drawing table, suggesting she take a closer look for herself. After Rose's romantic victory, her best friend sent her a risque video to help her learn a few tricks. Jack unexpectedly came home early, and in her panic, Rose hid the phone in a pillow, claiming she was studying. However, the video accidentally played aloud, flooding the room with awkward tension. Jack chuckled and asked, "Is this what you call studying?" Then, trailing kisses down her neck, he added, "If you're that eager to learn, let me teach you." Caught up in their passion, the two lost track of time and missed an outing with Rose's best friend. When Jack finally brought Rose to meet her, the friend was furious to discover that Rose was now her aunt. She scolded Jack for being a cradle robber and even extorted a hefty price from him as compensation. Jack then took Rose to meet his father, openly declaring that he wanted to solidify their relationship quickly, lest she regret being with him. However, Amy, learning of their relationship, began scheming to sabotage them. The next day, a painting of Jack mysteriously appeared in his office. To make matters worse, it bore a lipstick mark on his neck. Rose, feeling jealous, tugged at his shirt collar and left her own mark on his neck, a claim of ownership. Amy retaliated by posting photos of Rose on the school forum. Unexpectedly, the posts garnered praise for Rose's elegance and beauty. Jack took swift action to assert his claim over her, even going so far as to dress more youthfully to outshine potential suitors. His childish antics left Rose in fits of laughter. Jack's father, while initially scolding him for pursuing such a young woman, couldn't help but express his satisfaction with Rose and began pressuring them to marry. Rose planned to share the news with her own parents but discovered her father had been hospitalized due to financial difficulties. Distraught, she called Jack, who quietly resolved the issue behind the scenes. However, her parents felt she was still too young for marriage. After returning from her parents' home, Jack's friends threw a welcome party for Rose. During the event, David, learning of her relationship with Jack, lashed out, calling her unprincipled in the restroom. Unbeknownst to him, Jack was standing right behind him and delivered a harsh lesson. Determined, Jack visited Rose's parents to formally propose, bringing an extravagant betrothal gift and promising to wait until she graduated before marrying her. His sincerity won them over, and they eventually gave their blessing. That night, Jack held Rose tightly, and the two shared a tender kiss. On Rose's graduation day, Jack wasted no time and took her to register their marriage. Surrounded by friends and family offering their congratulations, Jack proudly announced that Rose was pregnant, sparking a wave of heartfelt blessings for the happy couple.